Tonight on Sports Bar, we've got App State women's and men's basketball, along with updates on App State baseball and coverage of championship week in college basketball. All right here, right now on Sports Bar. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Travis Stanley alongside Braxton Critcher, and welcome into this week's edition of Sports Bar. Let's get into the latest Mountaineer sports news. The women's and men's basketball team had their last home games of the regular season against Coastal Carolina. Our women's team ended up with a heartbreaking loss. The Lady Mountaineers fell just short in the last seconds of their game, losing 53-56. They now advance to the conference tournament as the 9 seed and face this same Coastal squad on Tuesday. Our men's team came out on top, wrapping up their regular season at the Holmes Center. The Black and Gold won with a final score of 77-73. Shabazz led the team with 18 points and took the three with 25 seconds left in the first half that put them up 48-30 heading into the break. 5 of the Mountaineers finished in double figures, including Shabazz, Kenny, Babick, Robinson, and Amarius Logan. As before mentioned, the men's and women's team are going to be traveling this week to New Orleans for the Sun Belt Conference Tournament. Here's what both the coaches had to say after their games from this past Saturday.
As a program, we can be extremely proud of how these 5 seniors have carried themselves, who they're going to become, and what they're going to be in the future.
The biggest thing with Jake is consistency. You know, if he can ever become consistent, you know, then he could be a heck of a player because he understands the game. He understands it really well, and he can make plays. That's why, you know, he's the guy. I think, you know, his IQ is off the charts, but then, you know, he makes some knucklehead plays, and so you know, that's what we're always looking for with him. But I was proud of the way he went to the. I mean, he had, you know, 11 points, 7 rebounds, 2 offensive boards, and he made big free throws. So I'm proud of Babs and the way he played. It's good to see him do that.
This past weekend, the wrestling team was in Charleston, South Carolina for the SoCon Championships. The Apps finished with a score of 86 points, good for the second place. Campbell University won it all this year with a score of 89.5 points. While the team is finished for the year, 3 wrestlers on the team qualified for the NCAA Championships in St. Louis, Missouri. Denzel DeJournay, who won SoCon Wrestler of the Year and pinned VMI's Thomas Shea-Roop in 30 seconds, will be in attendance. Vito Pisone and Matt Zavosky, who also won their match in the SoCon Championships, will join DeJournay in St. Louis. It is now time for us to take a break here on Sports Bar, and when we come back, we've got College Basketball Championship Week coverage and the latest from Jack and Sam. Welcome back to Sports Bar. Before we dive into what lies ahead this week in college hoops, we will give you a few things to think about from this Carolina and Duke game over the weekend. The Tar Heels avenged their previous loss to the Blue Devils on Saturday night by beating Duke 90-83. The 7-point win for the Tar Heels comes after an 8-point loss to Duke just 23 days earlier. With this season's matchups in the rear view, the last 98 meetings between the two schools have resulted in a 1-point edge for the Blue Devils in point total. Each team has beat the other an even 48 times in that span as well. What may be more interesting is that the loser of the second Duke and Carolina game of the season has never won the NCAA tournament. And on the flip side, the team that has swept the season series has won it all in the 3 of the last 4 times. That is a lot to take in, but the gist of it is that the Duke and Carolina game always has major implications on the NCAA tournament.
Speaking of the tournament, it's championship week around the nation as the majority of the conference tournaments will be held in the coming days. 4 conference tournaments have already wrapped up with Wichita State, Florida Gulf Coast, Winthrop and Jacksonville State all winning their respective tournaments. The Big 12 Conference Tournament will begin on Wednesday as Kansas will look to back up their regular season title with a tournament win. Also on Wednesday, the Pac-12 tournament will tip off at noon with UCLA, Oregon, and Arizona all looking to keep the momentum of the season going with a tourney win. The ACC tournament starts tomorrow at noon, but the top 4 seeds will not play till Thursday. UNC and Florida State have been considered for 1 seeds in the NCAA tournament, and based on their play this week will determine those final seedings. To keep up with all things championship week, follow us on Twitter and Facebook.
Today on Mountaineer Spotlight, we're going to look at something a little bit different. As some of you may know, Boone is a big skateboarding town. They're everywhere. But some people in Boone use them more as just to get to ride a class. Producer Bill Butland and Blair McQuiston went out and talked to Morgan Burns, a competitive skateboarder here in Boone, and learned a little bit more about what he does.
My name is Morgan Burns. I like to ride skateboards down hills. Alright, so basically it's a pretty simple concept. You take a big old skateboard like this, commonly referred to as a longboard, and you walk all the way up a big hill, and then you skateboard down it. And sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't, and you end up in the ditch, or with broken bones, or lots of road rash. Alright, so obviously this isn't a safe sport. We are riding toys down mountains at up to, and even in excess of highway speeds. At the very least, we always wear a half-shell helmet and slide gloves, which are, some kind of durable gloves. They're leather, nylon. These ones specifically are leather. But they have thick plastic pucks on the palms so that when you are going into a corner, you can put your palms on the ground, take your weight off the board, and be able to get the wheels to release into a slide.
We asked Morgan if he'd walk up the hill a few times and show us how the gloves help when he does a slide around a curve.
And into the turn, recarb, and scrub. Right now I'm just switching out wheels to a different set. These have been used a fair bit. They're pretty worn down. So these are fresh wheels, brand new, straight out of the package. And all wheels perform differently depending on the formula of the urethane in them. These are a little bit harder than the ones taking off. So it should be interesting. It should be a little bit slidier. Oh yeah, slides. I need to talk about sliding. When we go through corners, it's not just like lean and just grip through it. You have to slow down, but obviously a skateboard has no brakes. So what we have to do is actually kick it out sideways into a power slide and slide into the corner, because the sliding scrubs speed and slows us down enough to the point where we can hook back up, get traction, and roll away from it, hopefully down the rest of the hill without dying. I roll with a group of guys, and girls actually. We go by NCDH, which stands for North Carolina Downhill. As far as downhill in the United States goes, we are one of the premier groups of people doing it. Our media that we put out, our videos and photos and all that, is regarded as some of the highest quality stuff that any crew is putting out anywhere in the world. We got a couple of guys who do that for us, Phil Baldwin and Thomas Richmond. Together, they are collectively Flocus Media, and they do a lot of the all that kind of stuff for us. We got a couple pros that live here, ride with us. You know, people who aren't necessarily making money off the sport, but you know, they got multiple sponsors and all that kind of stuff. This sport has taken me all up and down the East Coast. I've met a lot of different people doing this. It's there's even with competition, there's no sense of competition. It's really a lot friendlier than the community of any other sport that I've seen.
Longboarding can be dangerous, but for active members of the community like Morgan, North Carolina Downhill, or NCDH, gives longboarders the opportunity to ride and race with others locally down the many winding and scenic hills of the high country. Morgan Burns, proving longboarding is still a thing.
Thanks, Bill. Now we have the latest edition of Jack and Sam's Corner right here on Sports Bar. Guys, it's all yours.
Thanks, Travis. Welcome to Sam and Jack's Corner today. I'm joined by my colleague, Jack Marion. Jack, nice to have you here again.
No, good to be here with you. And sorry about your hand. I know that it affects you in so many ways now that you look like a villain from Inspector Gadget.
Inspector
Gadget. Inspector Gadget.
Inspector Gadget?
Yes, the Claw. That's what you look like.
The Claw?
Yes.
Well, I can't say that the kid didn't deserve it. Anyway, we're going to get right down to things today. First topic of discussion, Kevin Durant and the Golden State Warriors. Kevin Durant suffered a stage 2 MCL sprain in their game against the Washington Wizards, and he's out for at least 4 weeks. He's going to be reevaluated after those 4 weeks, and they'll decide where he needs to go from there. So, Jack, what does this do for the Western Conference playoff picture, the playoff picture as a whole? Does this dampen their chances at all?
The Warriors are still, obviously, still a powerful team. Pretty much what's happened is it's gone from the team this year with Kevin Durant back to the team of last year, minus a couple bench players. But it does give the chance for teams like the Spurs and maybe even the Rockets to jump up a couple spots. Maybe the Spurs are still only a couple games behind the Warriors. They could possibly overtake the Warriors and become the 1 seed, which would obviously change up the playoff picture. But the Warriors have already clinched. I wouldn't be too worried as a Warriors fan. I think they're still a solid team. I think the biggest thing right now is, Steph Curry and Klay Thompson haven't been really clicking that much. But you can expect that with a team that just lost probably one of the best scorers, if not the best scorer in the league. So you can expect them to have a couple bumps in these past 2 games, but I think they'll bounce back. And we might even see, MVP like Steph Curry. We haven't really seen that this season, but we might see it now that Kevin Durant's kind of out of the way.
Yeah, the struggling behind the three-point line in these 2 games that they've played already without Kevin Durant. He went down early in the Washington game. They went on to lose that game, and then they just lost the other night to the Bulls, and that was the season low and just about everything. I think Klay Thompson went 1 for 11 from three-point range, so definitely something there. But I think a lot of people are going to throw up red flags seeing them lose 2 games in a row, but I don't think there's any cause for concern. You get Kevin Durant back at the end of the regular season, maybe the beginning of the playoffs, they're still my favorites to win it all,
Exactly.
I think.
I mean, it's been 146 games since the Warriors have lost back-to-back.
Sure.
And that had to end sometime.
Right.
It's incredible.
Right.
I mean, the NBA seasons are long seasons. People are going to go through dry spells. They're going to go through rough patches in their shooting. But I don't think from these past 2 games you could actually be worried about the Golden State Warriors not performing well the rest of the season.
Right. And from professional basketball, we're going to move to college basketball. Is officially March now, so that means it's everyone's most favorite time of the year, second only to Christmas, March Madness. Jack, we've talked about it before. Who is your favorite in the tournament this year?
You know,
if you have one?
originally I had UCLA being a good team to come through and play really well in the tournament. I still think that they're a great team. I still think Kansas could do really well in the tournament. But right now we're seeing a resurgence with Carolina. You know, early on in the season they were a little shaky. They've had a couple different losses, but I think they're finally getting their pieces moving, and they're really starting to look like a good team. It pains me to say it as a Wake Forest fan, but I actually think North Carolina could win another championship this year.
I think that's definitely what we're moving towards. They left with a really bitter taste in their mouth after last year, the buzzer beater that won it all for Villanova. So I think the Tar Heels are definitely out to prove something. I also like Gonzaga, but you never know, and especially this season. The way things have been working out, the way teams have moved around, you could definitely see someone like Baylor or West Virginia make a run at the title from a 3 or 4 seed. You might even get to see the elusive 16 seed over the 1 seed. You never know, and this season has been especially hectic.
I think there have been a lot of good games this season and a lot of different changes. I mean, Villanova was the #1 team to start out with. I think they still have a chance to repeat, but I doubt it'll happen with the way this layout is happening this season.
Well, we'll see how things play out. I think the tournament starts on March 14th, so that's when you'll have your TVs set to the CBS channels. From there, we're going to move on to it's kind of the hybrid college football, professional football. The NFL Combine is in full swing. The NFL Draft on the horizon. Who do you like? What do you like?
Well, I think right now the biggest question is what are the Browns going to do with their #1 overall pick? It's not a strong quarterback draft.
Right.
There are a couple of different ones. There's the guy from Carolina, and then there maybe 1 or 2 in the draft. Deshaun Watson,
right,
that people are saying might be an NFL-ready quarterback. But I think if you're the Browns, you really have 2 options. You take Myles Garrett, who many are saying has to be the #1 overall pick.
Right.
He's the best player in the draft. He will be the best person to build a defense around. Or I think you trade it and try to trade down and get maybe not a 1 pick. Maybe you try and get a 7 or an 8. And you try and get some better younger players in with the Browns. The Browns have had some good picks in the years, but the problem has always been that they have traded away or they put it somewhere else. So I think that's the biggest problem right now.
Yeah.
Looking for the rest of the draft, I think it'll be a pretty solid draft overall. Like I said, it's not a big quarterback draft, but we still have a lot of good running backs coming off the board. Leonard Fournette's going to end up somewhere, possibly with Carolina. Who knows? Dalvin Cook could also be another option.
Mm-hmm.
I think you'll definitely look for the Panthers to try and gain maybe another running back in this draft. But I think, honestly, if I was David Gettleman, what I would do is maybe trade away our pick and try and find some type of offensive lineman out there, whether it be Joe Thomas from the Cleveland Browns. I think that would be a solid pick if they could somehow grab him with their draft pick. Joe Thomas has been a solid starter for the Browns. He's barely missed any games overall. Michael Orr's still up in the air about whether or not he'll actually be anything this season. Mike Rimmers did a good job for filling in, but not the best job in the world. I think it could have been a lot better. So I think I look for the Panthers to try and find some stability on their offensive line in the draft.
Yeah, definitely offensive line, maybe also secondary, I think would be a good place for them to go. They've drafted defensive linemen and defensive ends for like the past 3 or 4 years. So I think they're set there. I really think they should focus on beefing up that offensive line, which has been good in the past, but was injury-ridden last year. I think that would be the best place to go. So from NFL, we move to a topic that is near and dear to my heart. It's been a topic of contention over the past as long as we've known each other, really. And that would be, what is the greatest sports movie of all time? I have my opinion, and I know I'm right, but I'm interested in hearing what Jack has to say on camera.
Personally, in my opinion, my favorite sports movie of all time, and the greatest movie of all time, would have to be Space Jam. I know a lot of our viewers would agree with me on that, in saying that Space Jam holds the test of time. It has everything you want from a sports movie. It has the comeback victory. It has the funny moments in it. It has sports stars. It has so many different NBA All-Stars. So I would say that Space Jam is the greatest sports movie of all time.
Now here is my rebuttal to that. Space Jam is the Star Wars Episode 2 of sports movies. It is bad acting alongside lifeless CGI cartoon characters. And to that, I will say that the best sports movie of all time, and this is taking into account Hoosiers, Field of Dreams, definitely the best baseball movie of all time. Jack will say Bull Durham, but he's wrong. The best sports movie of all time has to be Remember the Titans. It's a beautifully directed movie, a beautifully shot movie, a wonderfully acted movie, and it's poignant. It was poignant when it came out, and it's still relative today. Inter-race relations. It has it all. It has the victory. It has the heartbreak. It has the humor. It has a young Ryan Gosling, and I mean, there are a few things that can unite people, but I think Ryan Gosling is one of those things. Personally, I think Ryan Gosling is one of those things.
Well, we'll have to take this topic into next week, even though I'm glad we can both agree that Space Jam is way better than Remember the Titans.
Sure.
For Sam and Jack, this has been Sam and Jack's Corner. Back to you, Travis.
That's all the time we have this week, but thanks again for joining us. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter for updates on all things sports.
For some of the topics we didn't get to tonight, check out our Facebook page for some articles that you can read about local sports, professional sports, and more, written by our own student journalist.
This has been Sports Bar. We will not be with you next week, so tune in on March the 20th for all the latest updates on sports. For Braxton Critcher and everyone else behind the scenes, I'm Travis Stanley. Good night.